Thanks a lot for coming in.
Good morning, happy to be here.
Something about this community appeals to you?
This is a wonderful place to live.
For Kelowna Now, this is Camp Mulgat.
And we're joined by Brian Doubt, recently returned from a trip to Trinidad that did not go according to plan.
Yeah, I was actually in transit through Trinidad, so I was on my way back from Guyana.
Okay, Guyana.
Yeah.
But Trinidad was the problem, and the problem being that show us what you were carrying here.
Well,
this isn't exactly it, but
this is. I had one almost exactly like this. This is a bullet keychain.
Right.
It's inert. Could never be fired.
And you can tell that because I take it that the
primer is not there, and there's an eyelet in its place.
Right. So it is harmless, but
Totally.
might be menacing looking. And at any rate,
The idea is that it looks like it's an actual spent casing, but it's designed for like a gun enthusiast. or
okay.
a firearms enthusiast.
So you were traveling. Were you at the airport?
I was actually in transit. So my wife is from Guyana. She's there right now. And I was on my way back to Canada from Guyana, where I had a 10-hour layover in Trinidad. So in this situation, they make you go through customs and then go back right into the room you just left. So kind of a little weird.
Little circle.
Yeah, so you come out, and then I came out. I didn't want to feel like doing anything, so I just turned around and went right up the escalator to the security, and then was going through security.
And then what happened?
They found three. I had 3 different keychains. You know, my regular house key, a spare set, and a shop keys for my store. And they found those, and they're like, "What are you doing with this?" And I'm like, "It's a key ring. It's nothing." And the same things had been through security, airport security in Kelowna, in Miami, and in Guyana, and then Guyana on the way out. So
all of a sudden for Trinidad, this was a problem. And so what happened?
So then they show me they say, "Well, this is illegal here, and we consider this ammunition." And I said, "Well, it's not ammunition." They go, "Well, even an empty shell casing in Trinidad is ammunition." So they actually said, "We are putting you under arrest for possession." And they asked me if I had a firearms license, put me under arrest for possession of ammunition.
And so then what happens? You're under arrest?
So they put the handcuffs on, and I'm perp walked through the airport. It's the first time I've ever had handcuffs on in my life. I've never been arrested in my life for anything. I'm a law-abiding citizen. And I'm brought downstairs, and I had a camouflage backpack, which camouflage is illegal in Trinidad. So they confiscated my backpack. They made me empty my contents into a garbage bag. So then brought me out, and I'm talking to the police officers there, the airport authority guys, and they're like, "Look, you're just gonna go to court tomorrow, pay a fine, and you'll be along your way." And I'm like, okay, it's still pretty inconvenient, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking, well, this is a really inconvenient thing going on. So I get taken out. They take me to a police station. I'm being processed, fingerprinted, everything like that. And it took about 4 police officers about 4 hours to write up everything and do all the paperwork. So they do the paperwork, and they give me 2 charges. The first charge was possession of ammunition without a license, because I don't have a firearms license in Trinidad. I do have one in Canada. And then attempting to board aircraft with ammunition.
So these are the charges. So what happens while you're...
So I went and spent the night in jail.
Right.
And had to ask them to get some food for me, and I had to pay them to get KFC.
Right.
So I'm eating my chicken with my handcuffs
With the handcuffs on.
Yeah. In the back of the truck, like gobbling it down because I didn't know how long, I had to eat it.
One night in the jail.
Yeah, so I spent the one night in the jail. So it was basically, there was a 5-foot space where they had an old, who knows, pretty nasty mattress.
Yeah.
Folded up. So I spent the night there. Pretty nasty prison cell. And then they bring me to the courthouse the next morning. So I'm in the jail cells, holding cells beneath the courthouse. And they're on the way, they're like, "Look, you don't even need a lawyer. Just plead guilty to this. You'll pay a fine, you'll be on your way." Okay? And I'm like, okay, but what if I want to see a lawyer? They're like, "They're just going to charge you money that you don't need to pay. It'll be too much," and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, well, I might want to see a lawyer. And they're like, well, you have a right to see a lawyer if you want. And I'm like, yeah, I think I want to. So I told that in the vehicle, but then when I got to the courthouse, they don't say anything to you. So they just say, okay, come with me. And they march me up to the courtroom. And there I am in front of the magistrate.
Without a lawyer.
Without a lawyer. So, okay, I'm like, okay, so maybe this will go, or I can just, and she's like, well, we have 2 charges here. And there was some confusion about the second charge. The first charge was like, okay, but and the magistrate says, you don't have to plead for that one right now. But the second one, they said, is indictable, which is you can't plead, and then it will go to the Supreme Court. And then I'm like, oh, so this is a little more serious. And they're like, well, they're asking the police, do they have his Interpol file yet? And like, no, we haven't got it yet. And they're like, okay, well, she goes, do you know anybody in Trinidad? I said, I don't know anybody in this country. So I'm like, so she's like, well, the police think you're a flight risk, and I agree. So 1 week remand. Remanded in custody, 1 week. So I'm like, whoa, wait a second here. I said, 1 week is a long time for me to be remanded in custody. So she goes, well, it's normally 28 days. Do you want the 1 week or the 28 days? Kind of a little snotty, right? And I'm like, I'll take the 28 days. I'll take the 1 week. I'll take the 1 week. So I'm marched down back to the holding cells, and I'm down there, and I'm like calling the police, the guard. I'm like, hey, look, I need a lawyer, because now I see this is a little bit, this didn't go as anybody expected.
Yes.
So then I finally, the police says, my supervisor says, you can't see a lawyer. We can't get you a lawyer. I said, look, I don't care. I'm here. I'm just passing through your country. I need a lawyer. I said, I haven't had a chance to see a lawyer. Nobody gave me the chance to talk to a lawyer or get a lawyer. I said, you got to find me a lawyer, man. So he goes away, and then he comes back about 10 minutes later, and he brings me with him. And then there's this lawyer that they had gotten for me. And I show him my charge sheet, and he's like, oh, crap, this one's indictable. He says, you could be waiting 2 or 3 months to get a court date for this one. So I'm like, look, you've got to get me out of here. So they let me access my phone to get my father's phone number. And then they let me make a phone call with the lawyer's phone to my father, and we start arranging getting him a retainer. And I tried to pay him right there, and he said, no, I can't take payment from you right now, but we have to arrange. So my father arranged to pay him. Unfortunately, my father had a friend in Trinidad that I didn't know about, and an old friend he had there. So they take me away to the prison, the maximum security prison in Trinidad.
Maximum security.
Yeah.
And okay, we don't have a lot of time here, but give us a sketch of what that was like.
Okay, well, there's 3 police vans driving like 80, 90 miles an hour with a police escort in front going through the city. Police blocking the intersections before you go. Crime's pretty bad in Trinidad.
You're thinking like you're in a bad movie right now.
Oh yeah. So I'm just kind of going with the flow, right? Right now I'm just like, okay, trying to think of what I got to do to get out of this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I got to get the second charge changed, because that's the one with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I go through the whole thing. I get processed at the prison. So they put me in with the foreigner section. So I meet 2 other Canadians there, and this is the short version, right? There's a lot more to this. And I get access to a phone, okay, a smuggled in phone, and I called my wife. I told her what was going on. And
You're talking on a smuggled in phone now already.
Yeah.
Jeez.
There's tons of them in there.
So you're talking to your wife, tell her you're okay.
Yes, and then I started getting it. So after I talked to other Canadians in there, I'm starting to get an idea of the broken justice system that they have, because I meet guys there that are in there for 6, 7, 9 years without a trial. No trial, and they don't have a date for a trial. It's half full of Venezuelans that are there. They didn't do any crime. They're just picked up, and they're there for 6 months.
Just for being Venezuelan?
Yeah, for trying to escape their country in turmoil. There was a couple of Nigerian guys there that hadn't done anything. They overstayed their visa or something, and were in the deportation center for 2 or 3 years, and they decided to sue the government because it was taking them too long to deal with them, and then they just decided to throw them into the penitentiary, into the jail. So those guys
what
were
was
there.
it like? What was you were there a week?
Yeah.
I take it.
Yes.
And so what was it like? What was the sleeping quarters like? What were you eating?
Okay, daily, there was 4 of us in a 3-person cell. So the first few nights I slept on a floor, on a foam mattress, well-used foam mattress. And like everything I had to acquire. So I got in there with no underwear, no socks, no toothpaste, no toothbrush, no towel, no nothing. And so the Canadians, after I was there for 2 days, sent somebody from the embassy. And then I had to give her my own money. And she wasn't a Canadian either. They sent a Trinidad citizen who works for the Canadian embassy to see me. So I had to go give her some money for her to go buy me some clean underwear and a shirt and soap and a toothbrush and toothpaste and some toiletries, right? But the Canadians, they're not treated any better or different, but the food is basically like dog food. You get 2 buns with butter in the morning and either a really watered down coffee or another drink they call Moby, and another it's a sugar water kind of drink. It's basically just hot water with sugar added to it. And then that's breakfast. And then you get lunch, you get a cup of rice with a little bit of what's called chana, or a cook-up, which is a chickpea thing, or beans on and then about a toonie-sized piece of meat. And then that's it for lunch. And then dinner is another 2 pieces of bread with butter, or a little piece of jam in there, or peanut butter, something like that. But you can buy things in there if you want. The currency is cigarettes. So I start trying to get other food, and the Canadian I was in there, he had some peanut butter, so we get some peanut butter and stuff. And
So one minute you're breezing through an airport in Trinidad on a nice sunny day, and the next minute you are in maximum security.
next day, yeah.
Hearing stories about it's years and we haven't got a trial yet.
Oh,
So that
yeah.
must be freaking you right out.
Oh yeah, so I'm starting getting plan A, B, C, D, E going. So I'm trying to work every angle, trying to get this thing happening. The next day, the police officer who arrested me actually called my wife and apologized. He says, I didn't think it was going to reach this far, and said he was sorry.
He thought you were going to get hit with a fine and that would be the end of it. But
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the judge looked at it and said, that's indictable, and then this all happened.
Well, he charged me with the wrong charge. So then he charged me with the wrong charge, and then that was the sticking point for the whole thing.
You're stuck there. You've made all this contact with your wife and your dad and all this, but this isn't changing the fact that you're stuck there for the full
Yeah.
week until the next court appearance.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen to the next court appearance. So I'm trying to get friends to. So they started writing the embassy and trying to contact the government of Canada, Foreign Affairs or whatever, and they're all writing character references for me. They don't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do.
And
right?
it's all over a keychain.
Yeah, 3 of them, but they were 3 different sizes, but they were all inert, inoperable. And I heard after a couple days they had taken them apart and they just found that it was glue, rubber, cement holding them inside. So they knew.
Right.
I have to say this, everybody along the way knew they were not operable bullets. Every single person knew. The police had to know, because anybody who's trained in firearms would know that bullet could never be fired. They're like, well, are you a registered gunsmith? And I'm like, well, no, but you don't have to be a registered gunsmith to know that you can't fire this.
Okay, so we could probably go on for an hour, but you get through this hell week,
Yeah.
and then they obviously take you to the courthouse again, right?
Yeah, so the next week, so I get through the 1 week. There's lots of stories with that. And I got to tell the story about these guys that are in there. I mean, they deserve some due, because the Canadians there are not being treated the way they're supposed to.
So there's another story here,
Yeah.
that there's Canadians languishing in this maximum security prison that you were saying would like to plead guilty or something.
14 months. One guy's there 14 months trying to plead guilty, just can't get them to sentence him.
And he doesn't even have the term of his sentence.
Doesn't know when it's going to end.
He's just there in perpetuity, as far as he knows.
Yeah.
And you saw a few people in that circumstance, and so Yeah, the other
The
story.
other guy has a health problem, and they're not giving him proper diet or
Right.
anything like that.
The
for
other
this
story
situation.
is that the Canadian government should know that there's Canadians being mistreated in that very prison.
Well, they know, but they don't believe they're being mistreated. They believe what they're being told by the Trinidad government or the Trinidad person who's going to visit them in jail. So I don't know who's giving them the information that these people are well treated, but I can't say that they're being treated very well.
Right.
So then I get to my day in court.
Yeah.
So fortunately, my lawyer was very good, and they're not all good. So I was lucky to get a good lawyer. They're not all good. Like one of the guys, the Canadians, had switched 4 different lawyers.
Right.
So that's.
But this guy gets up and
So he got them to change the charge to a different charge that has the same charge, like trying to board an aircraft with a firearm.
but the non-indictable version.
The one that's under the Firearms Act that I could plead guilty to and pay a fine. So I ended up having to pay 5,000 TT, which is about $980 Canadian, and a fine. So my plane ticket's gone. I got to pay the lawyer, got to pay the fine, got to pay a new plane ticket, and all the work that I lost. My wife was supposed to be going back to work. We lost our crew for our job site because she had to delay her trip. My shop here was closed down while my mom was trying to help me with this situation. So it put me in a huge financial strain, like huge.
Right.
So it's been a huge trial for me to go through this.
Wow.
And you get 1 hour a day in the prison where you can walk in the yard. So you're in your cell 23 hours a day. You get to come out, grab your meal, go right back into your cell. And then you get 1 hour a day for what they call airing, and then you get to walk around in the yard. And then you don't get that on Saturdays or Sundays.
Right.
So Saturdays, Sundays, you're in your cell. And like after I'd been there a couple of days, I managed to get a hammock so I could sleep in a hammock. And I slept in hammocks a lot working in the jungles in South America.
Right.
So I was used to sleeping in a hammock. So,
But still, overall, I mean, this would be fairly described as a nightmare.
oh yeah, it was not fun.
And
There wasn't much violence there or anything like that, but it was because the foreigners there, most of them haven't done anything wrong.
So you didn't feel that you were unsafe, like your life was in danger when you were
No.
in there, but
The guards actually, one of the prison guards actually, a couple of them came up and apologized to me, saying, "I'm sorry."
that you're going through
Yeah,
this? Did they know what it was about?
They would ask me, "What are you in here for?" And I'd say 3 key ring bullets, and they'd go,
Really?
"Yeah." The guards and the police would ask me that, and they'd go, "Whoa," and they would be incredulous about it, and they're like, "Man, you're not supposed to be here."
Right.
And they would say, "I'm sorry, my country's so backwards, and our justice system is so
Well,
bad."
there's a warning in that for people, I guess. Don't bring anything in the least bit threatening looking anywhere near.
Well, be careful
Trinidad and-
about when you travel anywhere outside of Canada or North America where the justice system is run by unscrupulous
Yeah.
entities. The Trinidad used to be a nice place. It's gone way downhill in the last several
Right.
years. And there's articles about this. It's been, like you could have somebody killed in Trinidad for about $1,000.
Yeah.
And this happens, like the warden from the prison had been killed 3 months before I was there,
Oh, gee.
mowed in half with a machine gun. So there's, the crime rate is very high there. It's a very rough country now. It used to be nicer, but I wouldn't consider visiting there
No.
again.
Well, thanks for telling us about it.
All right.
Find out
Thanks for taking the story.
and thank you for watching Kelowna Now.